Hello and welcome back to Pulp Kitchen. It's just me today, George, talking about Stranger Things Season 5. Stranger Things is back and it's bigger than ever. James hasn't really seen Stranger Things. He caught the first season many years ago and hasn't sort of followed it since, so there's no point in him being here to discuss spoilers, but I am knee-deep in the Upside Down at the moment. I've seen all the seasons, I'm up to date, I've seen them all probably twice. And here I am talking about Season 5, Volume 1, the Volume 1 of 3. We're getting 3 batches this year. So I think like a lot of you will have watched the first few episodes, probably in quite quick succession because all of us are afraid of spoilers. And I think that's one thing that's quite a shame about the way the Netflix are dropping these. They still have this idea that you want to binge them and it feels like a hangover from the previous decade. Whereas, you know, when you've got event television like this, which it is, there's a huge amount of anticipation for it. Netflix's biggest IP, they still insist on dropping it all at once, but they also cynically have also been like, well, actually, it does work if we break it up a little bit. Anyway, little moan aside, but welcome. So let's talk about Stranger Things Season 5. We are going to be talking about it in spoiler terms, so if you haven't seen it yet, come back in a bit. Go watch all 6 hours of it and then come back and we can talk about it here. So I've got some notes and I've got some thoughts. And I think I'll begin by just saying this is actually the first time I've reviewed Stranger Things for the show. I've always watched Stranger Things for pleasure. Season 4 came out about a year into us doing the podcast. We weren't quite covering TV in that way. I think I might have discussed it a little bit on one of the episodes, but I've never formally reviewed it. And I'm glad in a way because it means I've just been able to watch the show for pleasure. Not that I watch shows or films when I review them any differently. It's just that it's a slightly different experience. I like Stranger Things. I enjoy the show. It's something that when it first started and there was a lot of hype about it, I was kind of a bit like, yeah, it's fine. I mean, I can see it's taking a lot from a lot of other films, obviously specifically 80s films, but even things like the Void and the Upside Down when we go into Eleven's mind is like that's taken from Under the Skin and things like that. But the more the seasons went on, the more I enjoyed it, and particularly when my other half started to watch it as well. And I think season 3 was a really pivotal moment where it stopped being so grounded and gritty, which it was to an extent in the first 2 seasons. And it became fun and goofy and camp. And I love season 3. I love how colourful and silly it is. And season 4 came out in 2022 and was a real escalation in the scale of Stranger Things. It was really quite massive. And I think that was one of the reasons why people were kind of troubled by the delay with this one. We're 3.5 years later now because a lot of season 4 had so many moving pieces, characters in all different parts of the world. And it finally ended with this huge conclusion about the Upside Down ripping through Hawkins. And then we had the 3.5-year delay caused by the strikes and other factors. And I think it's kind of killed people's momentum a little bit. So anyway, here we are, Stranger Things Season 5. I was excited. I got back from holiday. I hadn't seen any spoilers yet, which I'm glad about. And I just binged it all in 2 days. Broadly speaking, I enjoyed this. I liked it. I liked it for the same reasons I like all of Stranger Things things. It's playful. It's got heart. Can be incredibly goofy. At times can also be quite cringe. But I just enjoy the kind of blockbuster, big kind of spectacle of it and the silliness of it. I don't think it's take a show like Game of Thrones, which was on a similar, probably even bigger scale, but that had a huge amount of portentousness and needed to be grounded and serious. And I don't think Stranger Things necessarily is bogged down by the same thing. But I'm going to sort of go through a breakdown of episode by episode and sort of gauge a sort of reaction to it. Right, episode 1. So we're back in Hawkins. They've put a metal band-aid over the rip through Hawkins. Now I've seen some commentary online where people have said this feels like a cop-out. There was a huge ending to season 4. Hawkins ripped apart, and then we come back and they've put a steel sheet over everything. They thought season 5 would begin with Demogorgons running around Hawkins and all chaos ensuing. Well, for one thing, it has been 3.5 years, and because the show's been delayed as much as it has been, I think it was quite hard for them to just like pick up immediately where the show left off. I think they needed to establish a time gap to include the time gap that happened in real life. Also, but with regard to like why aren't Demogorgons running around all over Hawkins? Well, you got to remember Vecna. He had a plan, and it was to open the gates, which he did. But at the same time, he was then demobilized by being caught on fire and shot by Nancy and Steve and Robin. So like the Demodogs and Demogorgons. That is what it's called, isn't it? It sounds really strange when it comes out of my mouth. They follow Vecna's bidding, so they're going to be running around everywhere. So it's like a half-filled plan, and now Vecna's had to change his plan. Anyway, it begins with a sort of flashback to season 1 with I have to admit, slightly dodgily de-aged Will. I'm usually fine with de-aging stuff, but when you do it with adults back to kids, it is slightly strange. Surely they had enough footage of Will to kind of make it a bit more sort of composite, but good enough, fair enough for trying to tie it back to season 1. I don't have a problem with that, and like the VFX with the Demogorgon in particular are a lot, just so good now and so well realized. They were good in season 1, but now they're just sort of high end. What else is happening? Oh, I hate the basketball dweebs are still in it, picking on Dustin, and Lucas is standing up to them. I was like, are we not done with you? I thought we were done with you. They were like the most annoying part of season 4 with the guy who was like, Chrissy, those guys took Chrissy, we got to get him. And he got ripped apart at the end of season 4, and I thought, great, that's the end of that story. But no, they're still kicking around, and I hope they don't come back into it. But just like it's such like a goofy 1980s teen bully thing. It makes me cringe. It really makes me cringe. I noticed that every season, actually, with the exception of season 1, every season of Stranger Things begins with a character mourning the death of another character. So in season 2, it's Nancy mourning Barb. In season 3, it's Joyce mourning Bob Newby. In season 4, it's Max mourning her brother, Billy. And then in season 5, now it's Dustin mourning Eddie. It just seems to be the sort of motif that they have in each one, I guess, to sort of balance the tone of the whole thing. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the characters being back together in sort of a fair proximity of each other. They were all over the world, and like some characters barely crossed over in season 4. And I'm glad they were sort of, for the time being, in episode 1, all together again. I quite like this idea that Hawkins has been in quarantine. I'm like, yeah, it kind of works with that. You can kind of, if you want to, tie parallels to COVID and stuff, but don't need to. Okay, episode 2 begins with the Demogorgon attack on the Wheelers. Fun, good, engaging. I definitely think both of those parents should and would be dead. And I like the fact that they almost did kill them, but like they're just in intensive care now. And I'm like, oh, Stranger Things, you could have just killed them, and that would have been shocking and mean, but shocking. I think we forget. I've watched a little bit of season 1 into sort of in anticipation of season 5. And I think we forget how much death and how much sort of slightly grittier season 1 was. 11 kills a lot of people in season 1. Like, I don't think we remember that. And they kind of pulled their punches on this one. But I was always wondering what they were going to do with Cara Buono as Mrs. Wheeler, because she's not a main character. She's not really in it that much, and she doesn't know anything about the Upside Down. But she gets title credit. She's in the opening credit from season 1. She's in the opening credits. And I was always thinking, is she going to have a bigger role to play? And it seems that role was drinking wine and stabbing a Demogorgon. There you go. So that happens, quite entertaining. I at first, when the focus was on Holly, I was a bit like, I don't really have room for new characters at the moment. Or let's just land this plane and just like spend time with the people we know. But actually, the more time we spend with her, she's a good actor, I have to say, a kid actor. And, it makes sense. That child has been hanging around, and that child has grown up now, and I'm fine with it now. I got over it. Right. Yeah, season 2, I think, had a lot of... episode 2, rather, had a lot of exposition. And this is the one where I noticed a lot of characters in different places standing around going, we got to do this. No, we got to do that. Guys, it doesn't matter. If we don't do this, so-and-so's going to do this. Wait a minute. I have an idea. What if we do this? And I found that a little bit clunky. And I do, to be honest, find often with the earlier episodes in Stranger Things seasons particularly in the latter seasons where it's got really big, it can be quite clunky in them trying to move the parts around the board and the gears of the season beginning to turn like a train kind of shunting out of the station. I think it got better, but I did notice it particularly in that episode. Am I the only one who finds 11 a little bit boring? I feel like 11 only has two modes. One is superpower mode, which is staring down evil, nose bleeding, hand out, love it. And the other one is like wailing, being like, ah, Papa, all the sound waves hitting her. And I like the character to be in the story because we need her superpowers. But sometimes there's no way in. I get it that she's kind of like emotionless and kind of, she's been through a lot of trauma. But sometimes when we spend time with her, I'm like, come on, let's go back to Mike. Let's go back to the fun guys. I quite liked a lot of the pairings they did in this. I like the fact that Robin was with Will. I thought it was quite fun. And I actually, another issue I had, I began this episode by saying that I broadly liked the show, but here I am nitpicking at it. But what I really didn't like, actually, in episode 2 was the dynamic between Steve and Dustin. So in episode 2, they find Dustin, and he's been beaten up, but he seems to claim that it was a bike accident, but Steve clearly knows that he's been beaten up. And they have this argument in this car where Steve is just annoyed that Dustin didn't turn up, and Dustin is depressed anyway because of the Eddie thing. And I was like, they have this sort of falling out, and it's this really contrived dynamic so that for the rest of the season, they're not on good terms. And I'm like, this just is so unbelievable. You guys have been through so much together, and like, Steve, you really do care about Dustin. You would obviously be like, oh my God, what happened? Who did this to you? Let me go get them for you. Or I hope you're feeling okay. I'll look after you. And I just found it like such an annoying contrivance for the plot that tells me that either Dustin or Steve, possibly Jonathan, will croak it soon. I just, really bothered me. Episode 3. By the time we got to episode 3, I was starting to lose the plot just a little bit. I wasn't a big fan of this Mr. Whatsit subplot with Henry Creel as that. It was just a mess. What was going on with the kids and the stuff? But luckily, it's the gears started to move, and like when they introduced, I'm so sorry, I actually can't remember the character's name, so I'm just gonna have to call him the fat kid. I'm really sorry, but like the show makes great emphasis of his size and the comic potential of his size. So me calling him the fat kid is just what the show has told me to call him. But when they introduced him and Will explaining his powers a lot, it started to get a little just too convoluted, too plot explaining-y. However, I did find that when we got to the fat kid's house, Turnbow, is that his name? Turnbow? When they got to his house with his family members, although at first I was like, oh no, not more characters, not more people, I actually enjoyed the goofiness of it. Again, it was like being in a kind of camp 80s slasher movie, and them all sort of falling over. And then that also had that great moment where they're setting up the trap for the Demogorgon in the house with the barbed wire and the fire. And I like that. I like when characters use their brains and actually act smart. And I like the whole sort of tracking thing with the car. That's really great. I love the reveal at the end. This pocket world that Holly is in, which is clearly some sort of beyond the wall version in Vecna's mind, where it's all paradise-like and it's like a fairy tale, and he's keeping the kids there. And Holly decides to go into the woods, and she finds something in the woods. She runs, and at the end, we see that it is Max. I love that. I thought it was great. I knew obviously Max was going to come into it in some capacity. I thought it was great that she's stuck there. She says at one point, oh yeah, I know you don't believe I'm here because I'm currently in a coma in Hawkins General. Now, this is the most pedantic point ever, but we've been in the hospital a lot in this season because that's where the Wheeler parents are being looked after. And they've made great use of the logo in the background of the hospital, which is Hawkins Memorial Hospital. And the H and the M and the H kind of connect together. And when Max is like, I'm in Hawkins General, I'm like, excuse me, are there 2 different hospitals in Hawkins? Why? Why would this town have two massive hospitals? Is that a plot thing? Surely it makes much more convenient sense for us, the viewer, just to have them all in one place. Or was it that Max was in Hawkins General, and then when the earthquake thing ripped through Hawkins, lots of people died, and they renamed it to Hawkins Memorial? But either way, I guess it doesn't matter, and I'm probably the only person who cares about that. But it just stuck out for me. And then into episode 4. Now episode 4, the plot's in full momentum, and I liked Max traveling through the memories of Vecna's mind. There's that little reference to the stage show of Stranger Things, if anyone's seen that, which I have, which is a really good stage show, by the way. I mean, you kind of have to have seen Stranger Things to enjoy it, but really, really good fun time. But there's a bit when she goes to and she sees Joyce in the 50s handing out the flyers for a play, and I'm like, oh, that's Stranger Things, The First Shadow. I kind of enjoyed the Great Escape shenanigans with the kids behind the wall of the army camp and dealing with the water and the plumbing, getting them to go out one by one. That's kind of what I was talking about earlier about what I like about Stranger Things, the kind of goofiness, the campness, quite a lot of choreography and set pieces. I enjoy that. And then I love Murray being back, by the way. Murray is such a good addition. Probably will get killed in this season, or maybe he won't because it's just too mean. But Brett Gelman is just excellent. He's always good in this. He was great in Fleabag and many other things. The Hopper L fight in the Upside Down, in the army base in the Upside Down, which I thought was quite surprising, which is quite interesting that they have a base there. Again, just some moments really surprised me with that, like when the soldiers just open fire on the cabinet and then they realize that they've just riddled this innocent scientist with bullets. There's just sort of no reaction. I was like, you've just massacred this poor innocent man. Linda Hamilton in this as Dr. K. Linda Hamilton, of course, famous for the Terminator movies and anything else? I don't know. I like that Stranger Things will often do this with bringing in a kind of 80s actor to kind of as a sort of tentpole reference. So, they had Carrie Yules in season 3 and then quite well in season 4 because Vecna is so heavily inspired by Freddy Krueger. They got Robert Englund to play Victor Creel in the hospital, which I quite liked. And in this, I guess, because like 11 is in full Sarah Connor mode, they've got Sarah Connor herself, which is nice to see her. I will say there were a few times where I thought, Linda, it's lovely to have you in this. I'm not sure you're that good. I think you're a bit wooden. I was used to like Matthew Modine turning up and really giving it, or Paul Reiser, but Linda Hamilton, I was like, oh, okay, could we maybe? But by the time the fight scene happened, she was getting there. Who am I to say? I'm no actor. But episode 4 had so many things in it. Right, let's talk about the main things that came out of that. Number 1, the reveal of number 8 in the vault at the end. And I know it's quite funny because I know a lot of people don't like that plot line from season 2, and everyone knows that is regarded as the worst episode of Stranger Things. But the thing is, guys, they had to do something with it. They weren't just going to not touch it, otherwise that is a complete admission of defeat. And when we saw it was number 8, I was like, that makes sense. That makes sense that the army would, that they've written this plot well to incorporate that. To be honest, it had been so long since we'd seen number 8. I mean, that episode would have been in 2017, season 2. I was like, who's that again? I didn't recognize her. Who's that? So number 8's back, but that is a big thing. And it's clear that, it's clear that 11 on her own is not enough for Vecna. So they need more people. One of them is number 8. And the other person is Will Byers himself, who searched for the hero inside himself, in the words of M People, and found that he himself can stand up and incorporate the powers. And it's not just that the Upside Down is in him, is that he can use the powers, etc., plot stuff. And it was great. It was great at the end when he was able to stop the Demogorgons and he was able to kill them in the same way that Vecna killed his victims. I thought it was great. And that tees us up really nicely for the next batch of episodes. In general, actually, I loved the whole army base showdown. I knew that we were going to get that in some capacity because it's kind of Chekhov's gun. You don't put a massive army base in something with loads of people with guns and machine guns and not expect some sort of action. I'm happy that it's this early in the show. And that was just a great spectacle. The way they filmed that was really fun. Vecna turning up, having a full glow up. He's not weakened at all. He's actually like really strong, looking a little bit like Groot. Also, I'm really sorry if this ruins Vecna for people, but there are just a few times when he speaks up close to Will. I was like, you remind me of the Grinch. You remind me of Jim Carrey's The Grinch. He's kind of like, Will, get out of here. Kids today, so desensitized by movies and television. It might just be me. The Sullivan character, who's the Colonel who was chasing down 11 in season 4, who's in this, he sort of gets injured at the end of the fight, gets covered in fire. Is he dead? We don't know. It's one of those things where, like, if he is dead, fine, I don't have to deal with that character anymore intruding into the plot because he's just a purely antagonistic force in the plot. But also, if he is dead, then I'm like, well, what was the point of him? So I'm kind of hoping he's alive and can be useful, because I was actually getting quite bored of this subplot where everyone thinks that 11 is the bad person and they were hunting her down. I was like, oh, catch up. She hasn't been bad since like season 1. We know, like, that's like this idea that 11's the danger is quite an old hangover thing. Like, we got bigger problems to fry here. But yeah, that was a great finale, and I really enjoyed it. And I think it just, in terms of, we sort of put a message on social media and asked people what their thoughts were. And it's fair to say some people were split. I had messages where people said they loved it. They loved these batch of episodes. But other people were saying, oh, I found it really boring. They found it underwhelming. I think it doesn't make sense. I think the people who are saying it's underwhelming and boring and sort of nitpicking at the plot, I think they're being too critical. I think they're kind of actually missing the point of what Stranger Things offers. I think it's, like I said at the beginning, it's just kind of big, bold, fun. If you are new to this world, and not that I don't think anyone's watching Stranger Things for the first time with this season, I totally understand if you think it's silly, like really silly, or maybe if Stranger Things has just lost the charm for you and you've grown up a bit and you've returned to it and you've gone, oh, this is not hitting the same way. Yeah, totally. I see it. If you feel at occasion that it feels a bit naff, but I like it. I think they're throwing a lot of ideas, a lot of spectacle. You really can't accuse Netflix of squandering the budget. So where does this leave us for the rest of the season? We have 3 more episodes coming. Christmas Day in the States, but Boxing Day here in the UK. And the finale itself, I believe, it's New Year's Eve in the States, but New Year's Day here in the UK. And the 3 episodes that we're getting on Boxing Day are roughly 90-minute episodes, so 3 movies, essentially. Here's what I'd like to see. First of all, there was something mentioned at the end of season 4 that hasn't been touched upon yet, which is that when they were in the Upside Down, they're in Nancy's bedroom because they go looking for guns. And Nancy realizes that the Upside Down is frozen in time on the night that Will was captured. It's frozen in November the 9th, 1983. And so far, they haven't gone back to that and touched upon that. And I think that's a really interesting idea, and I hope they don't just drop that. Similarly, there's clearly something they're working towards with the date. There's like an anniversary coming up of when Will was taken, why Vecna kind of touched on why you needed children because they're weak, but I hope they kind of clarify what's going on there. And obviously the big discussion is anyone actually going to die? Stranger Things doesn't really kill people. I mean, I know I said earlier that every season begins with someone mourning the death of a character. Yeah, mourning the death of a side character, crucially. Although Joseph Quinn, I'm sure, is very happy about that, given that he's had the most successful career of all of them because he was liberated, off he went, to be Johnny Storm. So who's going to die? I think someone needs to, I guess, for the stakes and for it to be important. Or they won't, and they'll just stick to their guns. They say, we've left it too late now. I personally think they should have killed Steve at the end of season 4 and kept Eddie alive. That would have been more impactful. But I think everyone thinks it's going to be Steve. He's the easiest person to kill, to be honest, because we have no connection to his outside life. We have no connection to his family or anything. He was meant to be killed in season 1, apparently, but the Duffer Brothers just loved Joe Keery so much, they kept him in it. And he is a bit of a fan favorite. And he is like an older brother figure to many of the kids, including Dustin. If not, they could kill Jonathan, which I think is less likely because that's just really hard on Joyce and Will. But Jonathan, I'm kind of like, who are you now, really, as a character? You are just hanging around. Of all the characters in season 4, and there are many, he actually had the least to do. He was kind of like a stoner pothead. And this subplot about his relationship with Nancy, about, it's stale and is he going to propose and all that kind of thing. I think the Duffer Brothers forget that we haven't seen them be a couple in 2 seasons. The last time they were a couple together was in season 3, because season 4 they were split in California and Hawkins. So I don't really care, frankly, whether they break up or not. And in a way, I'm kind of like, have you not broken up already? Why would you keep this really stale, sexless, loveless relationship going when you could get back with Steve or something? Anyways, he might get it. I just don't think they're going to kill any of the regular kids. That seems really harsh. They could kill Will in this kind of sort of Will could sacrifice himself in a kind of way that's like, I was the child that went missing. I should have always stayed gone. Don't worry, I'll be fine kind of way. But I still think that's really sad. He's still a boy, isn't he? And poor Joyce. Joyce could get it. Actually, Joyce could be killed, I should say. Sorry, there's a misphrase there. Joyce would, Joyce could get killed. That would be impactful. Winona actually in this season doesn't have that much to do. She kind of, do you remember in the season 1 acceptance speech at the awards where she was kind of looking quizzical? That's kind of what she's doing in this. She's just kind of on the radio going, "Oh, are the flux capacitor?" Anyway, so I think, as ever, always enjoyable, fun. If you're getting stuck in the mud with it and you're really criticizing bits of it, lighten up, have some fun. I do agree that it's quite convoluted and there's a lot of plot, but as with all seasons of Stranger Things, now the plot is moving, now the gears are in motion and the train is pulling out the station, gaining speed, we can actually have some fun now. For me, my favourite season, though, is always season 3, because season 3 is such a standalone, actually, when you think about it. Season 4 is very much building into season 5. Season 2 is very much a direct sequel to season 1. Season 3 just lets them be kids, has this really goofy plot with evil Russians underneath the mall. That's over now. I just kind of like season 3 as its standalone thing. Anyway, I think, you could argue maybe the peak of Stranger Things before it got too big. Anyway, I've enjoyed this season. What did you think about it? What do you think of the episode so far? What do you think is going to happen? Send in your thoughts to hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com. I'm going to do this again when we have the next few batches done in between Christmas and New Year. That's right, guys. I'm working between Christmas and New Year just for you, so we can just discuss Stranger Things. And then I'll do it again on New Year's Day when we've seen the finale. I hope you've enjoyed this. Again, apologies that it's just me, but obviously there's no point in James recording his thoughts as well. You just got to do solo with moi. And that is it. That is Stranger Things Season 5, Volume 1. Let us know your thoughts, as I said already. Thank you as ever to our producers, Finn, Dave, and Loz. And let's see what happens. Let's see where this goes. Is it going to pull a Game of Thrones and be massively disappointing? My hope is that I end this season in tears. I like it that it would surprise everyone, and we get to the end of the show and we go, you know what? It might have been silly and a bit wonky here and there, but damn, really delivered an emotional wallop. Anyway, have a good week, guys. See you later.